morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today to attend our new episode of the Digital First Education series. We are glad to welcome you all for this exciting session. My name is Jean-Baptiste Piron, and I'm a member of the French cluster. We are a group of French experts based in Los Angeles and Chicago, and we help French-speaking people in the US to reach their business goals. We offer mentoring opportunities, an extensive network, and a deep knowledge of the different ecosystems in your region. Today, we will talk about the future of the digital identity, fraud protection, and best practices in all digital age we are deeply experiencing for the past year. Joining us from Los Angeles, Guillaume Bourcy will guide and inform you on the challenges we are facing and what to expect in the future. Good morning, Guillaume.
Good morning, Jean-Baptiste. Thanks for inviting me to this session.
Avec plaisir. Guillaume is a former founder of a Belgian company spin-off in the US with 15 years of experience in telecommunication, identity and security. He is today a senior executive at TeleSign in Los Angeles, leading the strategic business development organization, driving teams responsible for data partnerships, business development, and innovation. To all your audience today, this is your webinar, so feel free to ask your question in the Q&A box or in the chat box on your screen, and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. I would like also to thank our sponsor, Bank of the West, supporting us for this education series. And with that, Guillaume, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Jean-Baptiste. Merci. Welcome to all of you, wherever you are, good day, or in Europe or in the US. Thanks for attending. So today we're gonna talk about a vast topic, the future of digital identity. I would like to start this by maybe having a look back at 2020, right? Not only in the identity space, but overall. We have been in an unprecedented situation at a global scale. Massive stay-at-home orders, periodic quarantine imposed at all levels, friends, acquaintance impacted a way or another. World as we knew it has changed, and this is not the headline of the latest apocalyptic movie of Schwarzy, right? This is the reality. The world has changed, and we shifting from offline to online. That has been part of this new reality. Right, this pandemic has reshaped our habits. That's the least to say. The way we consume, the way we work, the way we communicate. I can imagine, you know, a year and a half ago, should I have had this French cluster presentation, I might be in Los Angeles somewhere in front of you, right? We're not. We are here on Zoom. There is pros and cons on that, right? I think we can gather a bigger audience. We can also have people from all over the world at the same place here. But this is also some cons, right? The social interaction, much different. I don't know if I'm going to bore you to death, for example, right? I don't know that. If we're in front of each other, I would know that. So the last year, 2020, has given us a glimpse of the challenge ahead for the future. When I'm talking about the future, I'm not talking about future generation in 20, 30, 50 years. I'm talking right now. That's already tomorrow is already right now, right? It's a short-term future, and for that, digital identity is no exception, really. Few things that what we have seen over the last year. Can help us and show some sign of what's to come. As I mentioned, the world is changing, right? We're all aware of that, obviously. And I guess there are a few interesting factors and numbers. The first one has been, these has been compiled by McKinsey. So I really trust my source there when it comes to McKinsey and what these numbers. Over the last year, so during the last 12 months, the digitalization of the customer interaction has accelerated by 3 or 4 years. This is really unprecedented, right? In 12 months, 3 or 4 years of digitalization advancement. That's really, again, this is big. Another interesting number, still from McKinsey, we have seen there that the global e-commerce transaction have increased by 20% overall over 12 months. It's not an increase like black market sales, Black Friday sales, sorry, or Christmas holiday sales or whatever, or Thanksgiving sales. No, it's consistent, 20% growth, consistent. So that's an habit that we come from brick and mortar shopping to online shopping, and we keep that habit, and we're going to keep it, right? Very, very important to highlight that. And then with the acceleration of the digitalization of the enterprise, ourselves, right? We digitalizing ourselves too, right? And with the this new habits that we take of, for example, shopping online, there is also some different type of fraud that we start seeing popping up all over the place. And there is more online activities, so it means more risk. That's the first thing, right? That's really that's the what's happening. More risk mean more fraud, and I have a few numbers there on the number of fraud that we see. But one thing that is very important, and that has shaped also this pandemic in terms of habits, is that before 2020, most of the online fraud were through bots. You are certainly familiar with DDoS attack, where you know these domains are attacked by they're flooded by domains and then they crash. And these domains are generated by bots, right? Now we have different type of frauds, and these fraud are human driven, meaning that we shifted from 75% of bots attack to now it decreased to 60%, and 40% is human driven. And that is a big change also in terms of fraud and how you can identify these frauds. So in terms of digital identity, it's very important to know that you are not only you not only have bots in front of you, you're going to have humans. How can you deal with that? So the structure of the enterprises before were equipped to fight against bot attacks, but the human nature is different when it does fraud. There were scams that appear over the last year has been very, very new for most in the industry. Taking an example, you might have been familiar with a term called friendly fraud. Friendly fraud actually is, I'm going to order something on one of these e-commerce platforms. I'm going to actually receive that at home. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to contact my my credit card issuer. I'm going to tell them I never did that order. I want to cancel that order. Please reimburse me. So that's called a friendly fraud. But this is human driven. This is not bot driven. And that's a thing that really emerged over the last year. And that's an example among a lot of others. A few things to understand what is waiting the future of digital identity, right? It's based on the fraud. The fraud is endemic. We have seen that most of these fraud are coming through mobile. I mean, we still see a lot of things happening through the old classic desktop, but the adoption of mobile has also helped to increase the numbers of fraud. And when you know that by 2025 there will be 5 billion of mobile internet users, you need to make sure that you adapt the type of security that you have to protect your platform, your social network, your e-commerce platform, your marketplace. So this is really important. We have seen also over the last year, and that was one number that surprised me a lot. We have seen 40% usage growth of mobile app, because I was thinking, okay, people are going to be at home, they're not going to download that many apps, they're going to stick on their computer and the desktop. But no, 40% usage growth year on year on the applications. This is massive. It means that there is more apps out there that need more protection, right? How do you identify all these users? How do you make sure that one person says that they are who they are? And that's something that we're going to look at closely. One thing also very interesting I compared here is the 20% year-on-year growth on payments, on digital payment, like PayPal-like. It's not only PayPal, it's different. It's in Asia, in Europe, in the US, wherever you are. This is very interesting to see that the adoption of this type of digital payment. And the digital payment has seen, I think, not only online, obviously online, they've seen a growth, which is very similar to the growth you think that you have seen with the e-commerce. But that growth is also driven by brick and mortars that need to reinvent themselves, right? The brick and mortars need to attract customers still during the pandemic. Some of them were open, but they don't want cash. So they needed to find a way to exchange that money to be paid. And so this is where some solution like PayPal, Square, and so on really flourish all across the world. And this is important that imagine a platform like an Amazon, a platform like an Airbnb, who are already digital native, that already master the online payment and so on. They already have some barriers to identify the fraud, to also know who is who behind, right? But think about these brick and mortars. It's totally it's new for them. It's totally new. It's a green field. They have no idea how to handle that. And this is where a lot of fraud can occur. And this is where the digital identity in the future can help. I've seen also a lot of breach over the last year. And a lot of these breach were caused by stolen credential or through brute force. And that's been quite an indicator that people have a poor way to manage their password, for example. Brute force, it's to store these through, having pushing a lot of different password, as many as possible combination to actually access to your account. And so it means that the password management for all of us is very weak, and we are really bad at that. How do we make sure in the future that we are better at this? And then that last one before we can jump on the weaknesses today of the identity and what will be the solution to replace that. We have seen that the scams have increased by 400%. So it's really in the history, it's like something that we never seen, right? It's a scams ring emerging all over the places and making COVID-19 the largest security threat ever. That's really also unprecedented. So what we need today, we need to make sure that because we are moving from offline to online, that there is an identity of a user that is taken at one point in time, and that the platform, so the social media, the e-commerce, the marketplace, any person having digital interaction has a 360 view of a user. So that 360 view allow a safe onboarding, a safe transaction, and it makes you a better a customer who's more happy, right? Because more secure. There is also for the merchants and so on, it's also much more secure, and there is no risk associated to that. So today there is some loophole within that, right? And there is weaknesses associated to that identity. There is things that are done today in terms of authentication, in terms of knowing in KYC and so on, but this is still very cumbersome. This is very still at a level that is not user-friendly, and there is also some risk associated with it. So the first thing in the weaknesses, there is a lack of identity data. overall. There is a lack of digital identity data. We don't understand, the platform don't understand or have clarity of who is on the other hand, right? So it makes it difficult for the enterprises to deliver their services and impairing the digital penetration rate. Also, although we have seen it pretty good over the last year, it's still being limited because of that. Then there is also the cyber fraud, trust and safety issues. We have seen, I think since 2013, there was 15 billion of data records on identity data records being exposed to a data breach. I can name a few of them: Yahoo/Verizon, I think it was Equifax and a few other hotel chains and so on. So this is really a lot of identities are there on the black market, in the darknet, right? The end user profile and the market fragmentation is a problem for the digital identity. We see there is no ubiquitous reach for these customers and understanding of the profile of these customers. Someone who buys some goods in Thailand has certainly not the same profile and the same information available for someone who buys goods in the US or in Israel or in Belgium. So there is also that market fragmentation that makes digital identity not for the moment something ubiquitous, right? Then we have the technology and operation. Technology and operation, I mean, you have seen this growth I mentioned earlier, right? But it means that at the back end, if you're a marketplace, if you are even a brick and mortar, then you need to scale up. If you have more digital interaction, it means that you start to have, you need to scale up your infrastructure. And there is a cost and resources associated with that. So that's also something very important there. One point I think, and I will go in more details on that next point, which is preventing fraud versus the conversion. You'll see that it's it's a cycle. And I can explain that as a next step. It's a very interesting one, and we can deep dive in that one. And then the regulatory framework. Regulatory framework for digital identity is a blessing at the same time as a curse. It's so diverse. I'm going to name a few one. CCPA to start here in California, right? That actually give a frame around how to handle your data, that these marketplaces, that digital players can collect or they can use it. Same thing in Europe, GDPR, right? That actually is for all EU citizens, even wherever they are, not only in EU. So you have also LGPD in Brazil, you have PIPEDA in Canada, and so on and so on, and so many. So the regulatory framework is not global, it's very local. But the problem is that a lot of these companies have global needs, right? When you're thinking not only about the GAFAM, but if you start to go on a platform, on Shopify, no, anyone can be on Shopify, right? And start selling all across the globe. But if you are just an entrepreneur, like a solo entrepreneur, and you're selling on Shopify, how do you know about GDPR? How do you handle PIPEDA and so on? Not everybody can be a specialist in that. I'm confronted every day with these terms, and I still barely scratch the surface of what it is. Trust me, and I will not go into too much details today. Don't want to bore you to death yet. So I think really, as I mentioned, a very interesting weakness that we can see today has been preventing fraud versus the conversion. And there is a myth today about the user experience, right? And we have seen that when you do too much or too little in terms of fraud prevention and identity of being able to use the identity of the end users. So you need to find a balance, right? And it's a cycle. I can tell you very known social network few years back before going IPO, they needed to show a lot of conversion, right? So there, they were not regarding too much. Do we have a bot? Do we have a fraudster? No, we just have an account, because an account before going IPO shows a growth. So we need to really get quickly people on board. We have seen that one of the drama of these social networks in the past has been that they've accepted over the years a lot of fraudsters, scammers, fake accounts, synthetic identities that have been created through these accounts. And it's been kind of building up their customer base, but at their detriment, right? And we have seen over the last years, couple of years, a few things popping up with manipulation of algorithms and so on because of these fake accounts. So this is really where you need to, and after passing IPO, you have audits, and then you have people looking at what you're doing. So your UI UX is getting a bit stronger, and you ask much more. Actually, you ask your customers more information. You ask them to be more diligent from a security perspective, but then you lose some customers, and this is where you need to find a balance, right? So you cannot be in that cycle of I need a growth, so it's open bar. No, you cannot do that. And on the contrary, too much security is also kind of not super user friendly. And not being user friendly is you reduce your conversion. I've seen, for example, in France, one of these payment companies working side by side with a carrier to actually have a mobile identification of their end users. And that mobile identification was so cumbersome that the conversion rate at the end was 3%. 3% conversion rate. I mean, this is awful. You can ask any person working in growth marketing, they will tell you this is bad. And so this is where you need to find this balance, right? And it's very difficult for these companies. For either you are a marketplace, either you are a social network, either you are even an individual solo entrepreneur working through a marketplace. This is very difficult to find that balance. And why that? What we have seen is that there is a disparate process in the identity today of an end user. That disparate process is a disparate defense process overall, right? It's that when you sign up, you're gonna go and try to have access to on some piece of information separately, to one actor, to another. There is multiple actors here out there that can provide you this information, but first you need to know who they are, and also you need to interact with them to make sure that the end user that is onboarding on your website, on your marketplace, and so on, is the right person. And from a digital identity perspective, you are 100% sure that you can safely onboard that person. As I mentioned, this is extremely disparate, right? With you don't have someone we can provide you the email and the IP address at the same time, or the phone numbers information. You want what we call personal information, like name and address. So you need to look to another place. Then you need to just check also some behavior data, right? Might have some SDK in your app, and that SDK gives you the way that people are typing, if it's a bot or a human, right? So there's all these things that you are thinking, and beyond that, you still need some machine learning, some manual review. I can tell you, I know one large supermarket here in the US, they still have a lot of fraud, online fraud, and they still do 7,000 manual review per week. 7,000. This is huge. This is really huge. 7,000 manual review per week, just for that. Potential fraud that has been through a all risk engine, that has been through a lot of verification. You still have at the end 7,000 verification to do manually. And then, only then, you can approve someone and say, I say that your identity is the right one. You are who you say you are, and you can onboard or use my services or do transaction. So you see the process is really cumbersome and very disparate and spread over different actors today. what would be something, I mean, the future of digital identity, really, that we are looking at, and we see that thanks, and I'll say thanks, or because of, take it the way you want, but because of, thanks to COVID, we have seen that acceleration and people really rethinking and about what is digital identity and how it should be actually handled at the back end. And we have seen that ubiquity is the key. And as I said earlier, it's not because you are consuming something in Thailand that you're going to be at the same profile and the same data available as someone who consumes something in or orders something online in the US or wherever else, right? But there is some kind of ubiquity and some data points that you can analyze all together and have a 360 view of that individual. So today you have offline data available, and I'm thinking about like credit bureaus and so on, of the the TransUnion of the world and so on, having a lot of offline data available, very good qualitative data about our name, addresses, SSN, date of birth. They even know what we consume, what's the brand of our car and so on for the one driving, maybe the brand of bike, whatever. I have seen credit bureau in Brazil that can tell if you are playing with a PlayStation or Xbox. That's the depth of details they have of your physical, the offline identity. And then you have the online identity, right? It's going to be an email address, an IP address, some behavioral data that can be through or through an SDK that or you type, are you a human being and so on. So these are all this online data. So the idea in an ideal world, creating that ubiquity will be to have the online data gathered with the offline data and merge them together and make sure you have a 360 view of that individual. And once you have the 360 view of that individual with a background foundation, right, of your end user, you can then have signals that comes on the emails, signals that comes all together, right? And gives you, okay, this is a good user, I want to onboard him, or it's a bad user, it's a no-go. Or might be that you still have manual verification, but I doubt that after that you will have some, because this is really where we go in the future. And one thing which is interesting, we have seen between the offline and online data, this is the holy grail to merge them together. But there is a constant there. And that constant in both offline and online data is the phone number. And so this is really the key. The phone number is becoming really an identity signal by itself, right? And it allows to merge all these other offline and online data all together and to create this 360 view of an individual. I want just maybe to go on a bright note, right? And I think the ideal solution is around the corner, right? You have a lot of different companies working on different type of solutions that are really good together. We see a lot of traction right now in the digital identity space, a lot of things happening. So this is very encouraging for the future. What I hope to come back next year and tell you that we have seen a decrease in fraud and an increase of online interaction. I think this is where we're going, right? And I really cross my finger that next year I'll be in front of you and come back and announce you some figures like that. But then what you want, the ideal solution at the end of the day, through this ubiquity, will help to de-risk the businesses, enable growth, and also enable not only people that are connected, but the non-connected people to also have access to digital interaction and have access to more services. That's really important. Connecting the non-connected. That's also what it's going to allow us to do. And then increase the conversion, meaning that we can have all these companies, these marketplace, but also these solo entrepreneurs, these moms and pop shops and so on that goes into the digital age, that's going to help them to have a better conversion. So there is still hope for the brick and mortars. I'm a big believer there's still hope for them and there is a place for them, but they need also to digitalize themselves at one point a way or another. And then reduce cost for everybody. That's going to be important, reducing cost. The more these type of solution, the ubiquitous solution will be there, the cheaper it's going to be. So it's going to be a virtuous cycle on onboarding more people and getting more safe interaction online. So this concludes my presentation of the future of digital identity. Hopefully you still connected. And I don't know if you have, Jean-Baptiste, if there is questions that arise or not. I didn't see it.
I guess what we received some questions before the session already. So
okay.
I think there is a huge interest in that topic. So I have a first question for you. I have a huge list of passwords that I try to save in a secure location, and I'm using a password manager app. You see, some use them. Can we imagine to log into website or services with a passwordless solution anytime soon?
That's a very good question, actually. And there was things that are happening, initiatives that are happening, and then companies, large companies. I'm not talking about like just obscure data companies there, but large companies like a Microsoft. There was and others. There was really some need for this passwordless of interaction for the end user. For what we were talking about, the interaction, the balance between security and end user experience. And so yes, there is currently a lot of passwordless initiatives. Still very early to say where it's going to go. I'm a very firm believer it's going to work in the future, and but it's going to be a mix of first, if you go passwordless, it means that you're going to have much more scrutiny on your data. Are you ready to give more of your data? And when I say more of your data, are you ready that corporation or even solo entrepreneur or whatever have access to more of your data to make sure that the experience stays passwordless? And that's something we need to find out. And as I mentioned, the regulation, so different regulation have given a frame around that. So that's also where the passwordless need to jingle about, oh, we're going to treat these data, or if we can keep them, how long can we keep them, and so on and so on. So I'm a firm believer in that. I think this is definitely the future. But yeah, let's see where that ecosystem. I think we are. It's nascent and it's evolving.
Okay, going further than passwordless solution, I have another question. Do you think that biometry is the only safe solution to counter identity theft then?
No, I mean, I love biometrics. I think this is great. We are moving, but like any other solution in the market, there is flaws. First, you have no ubiquity in biometrics. Everybody has different. I know so many different companies proposing facial recognition. Facial recognition has itself some challenges, right? I know Apple get a lot of issues at the very early stage in Asia. And so you have competitors coming in with solution dedicated for Asia. You get in the biometrics, your fingerprints is not always the most easy to use, and you need to have devices that are fingerprints ready. The biometric has been, there is a lot of good things around it. I think it's a complementary way to authenticate. And I think I really like it, but it's not the only solution. It's part of the solution. Okay. And you need a compromise between different type of data and authentication, including biometrics, to make a safe and secure environment for your end users and their identity.
Biometrics are very used by government entities and officials and so on, and less with private companies and so on. So
yeah, and you can see an acceleration of like document scanning can be one of the biometric facial recognition, as I mentioned, and so on. But you have also behavioral biometrics, the way you're going to type on your keyboard, for example. A couple of companies doing really great things around that. but it means also that they analyze your behavior on a day-to-day. Each of your interaction is analyzed. So again, it's what are we doing with your data? How are we treating this data and so on? Are you ready to go in that direction? So I think they are an answer to some level of security threat, but not for all interactions.
Yeah. And we receive a last question for you. What will be the first thing to do when you feel that you are a victim of an identity theft in the US? Basically in the US, because US
in the yeah.
So
first thing first, just change your password. All your password. That's the first thing you do. You go online, you change all your passwords. And also, I would advise really and encourage people to have the way they manage a password. Really, just make sure you're not using really common key name, phrase, your date of birth, and so on. Just really be careful about that. I think it's very important how you manage your password in the first year. And then you have different type of attack, like we have seen SIM swap and so on. SIM swap, if your SIM has been taken over and you see your phone has no reception for a while, just ask yourself, call your carriers, not with your phone because it will be blocked, but call your carriers. Go even in a shop there. Just make sure that you are not another victim of identity theft. And we have seen that the SIM swap here in the US is on the rise. If anyone has a cryptocurrency portfolio, just advise you guys, be careful. They are the first target of these SIM swap scams. So this is very important to always communicate to authorities also and alerts whoever is. When I say authorities here, it's the carriers. It's going to be the authority for you and make authority, and then have a police report filled in.
That's a really good advice because it happens so often. I heard stories about that and it's kind of scary. So thank you.
Definitely it is, yes.
We receive another question in the chat box. Have you identified or do you foresee any issues crossing linguistic borders? For example, password in translation.
So the password less doesn't mean that you still have it means that you don't have a password anymore. So the linguistic there is not going to be an issue because they're going to use other type of data to make it sure that you don't have the password anymore, and it means that the data they're going to use is going to be your device, tracking your device, so taking a fingerprint of your device. That it's already done at many levels for a very long time, but now we're going to evolve to that and make sure also there is some additional information added on top of that. What I said also earlier was very true, is that the profile of an end user in Thailand, shopping in Thailand, not going to be the same as someone in the US or in Europe or whatever, or in Africa, right? So then you need also to adapt, and this is where the ubiquitous model is so important, and make sure that you find a few data points in that ubiquitous model that's going to be global. So it's going to be a phone number, it's going to be an email address, it's going to be a name, an IP address, and then adding some signals around that. And these signals are going to be important, right? And these signals are going to determine if you are in front of a good user or bad user, and the type of behavior of that user. So linguistic, of course, at the back end, you're going to need to make sure that if it's in Cyrillic, that you can translate everything in Cyrillic and you adapt. But that I'm not too worried about that. But it's a great question. Thank you.
I think ubiquity is the word of the day and the word
of identity, right?
For the year
and
to come.
I'm not here to prone Big Brother. I just want to, but it's different system that's going to be ubiquitous and provide some of these information that going to be really the most relevant in the future of digital identity.
Thank you, Guillaume, for all the information you shared today. I don't know if we need to be scared, but now we have certainly more knowledge and know to enter or stay in the safe zone concerning our identity or digital identity. I personally liked the balance you have to find to run your business. especially for small and medium entrepreneurs
Yes.
we have here in the US. Yeah, that's very important. So
Definitely.
this episode will be available on our French Cluster YouTube channel very soon, so you don't miss one thing. You can also access there to our previous Digital First episode, as well as a selection of webinars on real estate, tax, immigration, to mention a few. And thank you all for being present today, and we are looking forward to welcoming you again very soon. Merci Guillaume, thanks again,
Merci.
et à bientôt.
À bientôt.